And staying with that topic, senior Iranian officials say they are preparing for talks with the US as Donald Trump seeks to raise the pressure on Iran to negotiate a deal. President Trump says Tehran is negotiating seriously after the US positioned warships near the Islamic Republic. The talks are expected to focus on Iran's nuclear and missile programs, but Iranian officials have said they won't negotiate under duress. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has warned that if the US begins a war, it will become a regional conflict. And joining me now is Simon Mabon, a Middle East analyst at Lancaster University in the UK. Simon, a tough talk there from Iran's supreme leader on the one hand, but officials are saying they're preparing for talks with the US on the other. What's your assessment of the situation here?
Yeah, it is tough talk, but I think it's emblematic of the high-stakes poker game that is being played across the diplomatic realm between the US and Iran, and indeed many others. The Iranians don't want to be seen as being weak and just conceding to US demands. They want to go into the negotiations with as strong a hand as possible, and they see that perhaps the best way of doing that is by posturing, is by this belligerent, firm rhetoric of saying that if things escalate, then we will escalate things further. Now, of course, that makes diplomacy even harder because it ups the stakes, it makes the situation more precarious, and it antagonizes the other players involved. So I think it's a dangerous game that Iran is playing, but this is a very, very high-stakes game of poker right now.
Now, by regional war, Khamenei is presumably implying that if the US attacks, then Tehran could hit back at US bases in the Middle East, but also against Israel. How likely do you think that is?
Well, again, I think this is all part of the broader diplomatic game that is being played. Iran isn't just speaking to the United States here. I think it's speaking to other states across the Gulf. It's speaking to Saudi Arabia, to Qatar, to the UAE, and indeed others who are increasingly wary of what a US military strike on Iran might look like and what it would potentially do to the region. We know that Saudi Arabia has spoken out to Donald Trump and to others in the US administration, urging them not to strike Iran, having signed this rapprochement agreement in 2023 and having begun to work with Iran quite closely, and realizing that the best way for MBS, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, to achieve his goals domestically is to have regional stability. So I think what Iran is trying to do is say, look, regional states, we are now working together closely. You need to put pressure on the United States as well, because if it doesn't, then this is the potential repercussion. And that's what the Saudis are fearing, the Qataris are fearing, the Emiratis are fearing, and also the Israelis are fearing.
Now, Iran has also announced live fire exercises in the Strait of Hormuz. Is that helpful and wise, considering the size of the US naval presence in the region right now and the potential for misunderstandings?
Well, the potential for misunderstandings right now is incredibly high. But again, I go back to what I've said earlier about the diplomatic posturing that is going on right now. Iran's military does not have the capacity to compete in terms of sheer size and indeed firepower with the United States. So it cannot match it in terms of those dimensions. But what it can do is try and up the ante and say, look, we are doing these live fire exercises in the Strait of Hormuz, and this is our way of saying we are too having a strong presence. We are on military footing. We are ready for what happens. But as you say, this increases the likelihood of a potential misunderstanding, of a miscalculation, of a misreading of things. And we know how these things can very, very easily get out of hand and escalate, even if neither side necessarily wants a conflict. Now, the problem is we don't know that the United States does not want to take military action. And so if there's an opportunity here, if there's a misreading of things, then it could very easily be the precursor and the justification that some in Washington are looking for. So it is a really delicate and dangerous moment right now.
The Middle East analyst Simon Mabon at Lancaster University in the UK. Thank you very much for sharing your expertise with us.
Thank you.